Hello, welcome to the show. I'm here today with Colin Swan, Senior
Hey, Sanj.
Agile Delivery Manager. Hey, Colin. Hi. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here on a Saturday morning. I know
Oh, my
this can't be
pleasure.
your dream place to be.
Quite the opposite. I've been looking forward to this.
So I was having a look at your past career. You've got over 15 years in project management slash delivery management. You've worked in the public sector for the Central Office of Information in the UK. You've worked for lots of other notable companies in the UK, like agencies. You worked for Unbiased. You worked for the excellent Compare the Market. You did like nearly 3 years there or something. You were a Scrum Master at Toyota Connected. And you're now a senior Agile Delivery Manager at Depop. So, firstly, excellent career.
Oh, thanks.
And
I've enjoyed it.
you're welcome. I'm sure you have. The first thing that stands out to me is it's all PM DM roles. So, do you just know way back then, like 15, 20 years ago, or whenever it was, do you just know I'm going to be a project manager for the rest of my life?
My wife and I moved to the UK back in 2008, and the timing was perfect. It was right at the height of the economic collapse there. I think we arrived, we landed in London. I think it was like 3 days after Lehman Brothers collapsed or something like that. Like really couldn't have timed it better. And yeah, we were here. We came here so that my wife could do her studies, and I was going to get a job. And suddenly we landed at the situation is it's a lot more dire. So I was sort of applying for pretty much anything that I could. So I was looking for work using my skills as like in web design and publishing as a designer or developer. I was taking courses in the evening on Flash when I thought ActionScript was going to be the future. Um, and then I was applying for jobs that sort of use those project management skills, and that's when I sort of realized, okay, the name of the job is project manager. And then I was also applying for jobs waiting tables in restaurants because I had those skills too, and just needed a job, frankly. September 2008. And I remember this. I in the same week I had an interview at the Central Office of Information, the COI. So it's this government sort of government's ad agency, I guess you might sort of say. So publishing. It was for an entry level project manager role. And that same week, I also had a trial shift at Jamie Oliver's 15 restaurant here in London. And in that same week, I got the call back. Jamie Oliver said no, and the government said yes. So I became a project manager that day. It could have
Wow.
gone a very very different way.
So
But yeah,
really, like hundreds of people in tech basically have Jamie Oliver to thank for you.
I guess I hadn't thought of it that way, but I suppose so. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it was a side of the job that I really knew I enjoyed. I liked just naturally organizing things and helping out people, being helpful where I could. And yeah, it sort of went for there. That was on the publishing side. It was the print department in the COI. So I was dealing with yeah, helping various ministries and departments publish printed material. I quickly found an opportunity there in the digital side, which was an interest of mine. So I got into the digital side, worked there for a couple of years in total, and then realized this is something I really really enjoy doing. So I kind of want to make a deliberate path here. And it was then that I kind of decided, okay, the public sector is really interesting, but boy, agency world, the working for agencies seems really exciting. And what an opportunity to sort of prove myself and learn a bunch of skills. So that's sort of the direction that I took and decided to go into agencies, and yeah, the rest is history.
Agencies aren't many people's sort of dream job. A lot of people are sort of forced into that position, but actually, I think we've discussed in the past that it's actually quite a fun gig.
Yeah, it can be. And in retrospect, where the journey that I've been on in my career, I've very much come to the opinion that agency work isn't for me in the end. But it was really formative and helpful at the time, if you know what I mean. I think I
Mm,
remember distinctly the reason that I wanted to try agency work initially is I had this idea that it was really fast paced and action packed and results driven, and I could kind of prove myself, I guess, or gain those skills, and if I could make it in agencies, I could make it anywhere, kind of thing. The reality was, I mean, yeah, it was fast paced, but it was also fun. It was hard work, but lots of things are hard work. In retrospect, I think working at an agency, you get a lot of experience with very specific kind of work, and it very much project based work, which I'm sure we'll chat about this, but isn't in the end where I really found my passion. So working on discrete projects with discrete temporary teams for around sort of defined contractual goals, or contractual constraints and all that. And it was exciting and interesting and focused, and I met some great people and did some things that I was proud of. But I got to a point where I realized that I was spending a huge amount of my time focusing on contracts and agreements and defining scope and writing statements of work than I was actually helping people, organizing people, supporting teams and doing delivery. And that can be great for some people, but it wasn't for me. I started to really realize that the work that really made me happiest and that I was most proud of was when I would get to be with a more stable team for a longer period of time.
What are the sort of delineations and the sort of boundaries between project manager, delivery manager? Where does Agile come into this?
Project managers' work would be much more classically focused around a discrete project, something that we're trying to deliver or achieve with a temporary group of people for a fixed period of time, or semi-fixed period of time, and that's the project. And it's about managing that as best you can. Whereas a delivery management is sort of takes as its starting point that there's going to be an ongoing series of things to deliver rather than a single big project done by a group of people that is going to be delivering those things on a much more consistent basis. And it's much more about doing things maybe sustainably, reliably, predictably, healthily, with the same group of people over a longer period of time. Agile is often a methodology that supports working in that way. That's why a lot of the work that I do for the last several years has been using Agile with Agile teams as a delivery manager. Though I guess that's not, you wouldn't have to work in Agile to be in an Agile way to be a delivery manager. And then Scrum Master is very much a classic role in the Agile Scrum framework. And it's also has this flavor of supporting teams, helping teams to deliver, in this case, to achieve the things that they're trying to achieve, but with, I guess, a key distinction around between, say, a delivery manager and a Scrum Master, at least as I conceive of it, is around the responsibility for delivery itself. I guess a Scrum Master would be there to support self-directed teams, to help unblock, to kind of facilitate and encourage good practices with the team, but ultimately isn't the one who is going to bed at night worrying about, say, hitting a deadline or getting a certain delivery done in a certain way. The team should have that ownership themselves collectively. Whereas for a delivery manager role, it very much is part of that person's remit to care very much about delivery and to be accountable to those outside the team for that delivery.
We know you got your first job as a PM thanks to Jamie Oliver, but do you have qualifications? Are there qualifications in the PM DM space in the UK? How do people these days get their first job?
Yeah, so there are, though I would say there's lots of opportunity, I think, for people without specific qualifications, but with the relevant experience. I think that that is much more relevant. So some classic kind of qualifications would be say Prince2 certification. So that's sort of a standard and a methodology, very sort of classic one, very much focused, often associated with sort of waterfall style delivery. I went on a 2-week training and certification program when I worked for the government on Prince2 years ago. And it's an internationally recognized standard, but by no means is that sort of necessary for certainly modern agile roles. Things like Scrum Master certification is very common to see, and other certifications in sort of Agile, but nothing. Nothing really stands out as essential, at least in the roles that I've done. I don't recall ever being quizzed on whether or not I had a certain sort of certification. And when I'm looking at CVs, I'm not scanning. It's interesting to see, but it's not essential by any means. It's not something that I think I'm looking for. That said, I'm sure that there are organizations that use the presence of that certification on your CV as maybe a screening tool, but in my experience, it isn't an indicator of a good or a bad delivery manager or Scrum Master.
If we look at the sort of PM DM role, in my mind, in terms of like the organization, it kind of sits there in the middle between the kind of the owners and the stakeholders, and then the sort of workers, or like, the dev, the UX, the testers, and everyone else in an agile team. Is that what it feels like to you? You're kind of in the middle there. You're like a tour guide, or like, you've been entrusted with like keeping a band, like touring Europe, making sure they get on the bus.
Yeah, I like that analogy. That's not too bad. I think about that a lot, actually. Is where do I sit in relation to the team and the organization and all of that? Sometimes it very much is in the middle. There's sort of an element of the job that it is inevitably being I guess both a spokesperson and a defender, depending on the context of a team. So for example, I feel good when I can protect the team's time, so to speak, by being able to speak on the team's behalf to the inevitable rounds of stakeholder meetings and updates and check-ins and all of that. By protecting the team's time, I'm able to contribute and help the team work better by being that's representative. And I try my best to do that in a way that's honest and supportive, and at the same time being that defender of the team when requests are being made or that are maybe unreasonable, or there needs to be perspective given in a given decision, and sometimes that needs to be made forcefully. Being that person who's willing to do that, to be to challenge things and to stand up and to say no when it needs to be said. It's at those times that I definitely feel in the middle between the team and the outside world, the rest of the wilderness. And then there's other times I guess I feel I'm very much behind the team, supporting them, sort of picking up the pieces where I can, helping with anything that gets dropped, and sort of being behind the team, watching out for what maybe gets missed, being that tidier and organizer and nurturer of a team. It sort of at those times it feels like I'm sort of behind a team as they move forward into the great successful future, and I really enjoy that. I love knowing that I can kind of in the background or without being the star or the focus. make a big difference, letting people get on with the things that they want to get on with, feeling supported that somebody's got their back. And then at other times, I guess I feel like it gets to be in front of the team, leading them in a specific direction, say, or standing up and owning a decision because somebody needs to own a decision. And that sort of that leadership needs to happen, and those aren't as common, which suits me just fine. But it feels really good when you can be in that position and support in that leadership capacity as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you're great with people, and, your dedication to the teams that you've sort of led kind of, is really apparent, which I guess makes people, want to, do well and do you proud, I guess.
Thanks. I often wonder that. In moments of doubt and all that, I I wonder, well, why? What role am I actually filling? I'm not telling people, like, this isn't a command and control kind of model. Like, I can't tell a developer to, hey, get this done by Tuesday, or hey, fix this or change that, or dictate terms in that way. And it's people's motivation for coming together as a team, for putting the needs of something other than themselves, in this case of a wider group, before their own needs, is always such a mystery to me. And I think just really, really fascinating. I mean, this is a much bigger question about the dynamics of groups. What is it that helps people form that identity as a team, something that's worthy of committing effort and passion to, and then who listens to whom? How do people influence others in a collaborative environment? What's the cause? What am I doing, or what are any of us doing that helps motivate or direct or kind of create that drive to work together as a team? It's literally what I do day in and day out, and yet it's still a wonderful mystery to me. Yeah, still exploring.
I mean, it's clear that team is very important to you. What else are you passionate about in your work?
Yeah, I guess the flip side of that would be individuals. So when I look back on the work that I've done and the jobs that I've had and the teams that I've worked with, it will be the things that stand out to me are the actual the specific, a lot of the specific people that I've worked with, and seeing them both develop and grow in their own careers, both explicitly, like, promotions and skills learned, and kudos given and all that, but also seeing how the individuals have sort of in more of a soft way, I guess, changed and grown, and kind of come together. So small things like two people who I'd never seen work together develop a really good working relationship together, finding a dynamic that works together, or an individual who I had never seen, say, take on a task, a technical task or a leadership task or whatever, take something on in a way that I've not seen before, and just the thrill of watching them do that is just really, really exciting and interesting. It very much in an individual way, I guess. I'm reflecting on my career. It's like specific faces and specific moments with people that often stand out. Somebody in a meeting just absolutely bowling me over with some amazing presentation or point that they made, or somebody just really taking charge of a situation, or quietly working really hard without much fuss, suddenly delivering this amazing thing that makes a huge difference. Yeah, just seeing the individual achievements of the people that I've worked with, it just gives me such joy. And the thing is, the reflecting on it, you never quite know. Those moments come at the most surprising times, and sometimes I'll just feel lucky to have gotten to be in that meeting to witness this thing, or to have been lucky enough that this person picked up this particular ticket, or this person spoke up at the right time, or this person, confided in you about something, and you were able to help with. Yeah, those moments are definitely really special. Um, there is the more formal side of it too, of course, the mentoring and coaching and line management side of things as well. Um, that's also really valuable and rewarding. But it's much more the former, I think, when I really look back on my career and the things that have made a difference and felt important.
I mean, it's almost like the perspective of like a parent to a child, right? You're kind of just you're proud that they did something right.
I mean, I deliberately avoid that metaphor because I think it can be deeply patronizing. As an actual parent to an actual child,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
certainly I want to make that that distinction. um, but yeah, it's pride in a friend, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
All right. Pride in a friend. Let's just stay
yeah.
friends.
And that's a really interesting part of it, though, is that I guess with the pride as a parent in when I see my daughter trying something new for the first time, it's different in that I'm a grown up. I'm very capable of getting dressed myself in the morning. But when she was first doing it, she was learning how to do that for the first time. It was tricky. Whereas
Mm.
as a parent, I'm quite capable of doing a lot of the things that I praise my daughter for. Um, Whereas as a delivery manager, I am not at all capable of doing the things that the people that I work with do, which is such an interesting part of the job. I know a bit of HTML and some JavaScript. I can hack together some stuff in Photoshop. I can kind of run a user testing session that I've had in before, but I'm not the expert. I work with these incredibly talented specialists and people, and most of what they do and how they do it is magic to me. I it keeps me really really humble about how skilled these people are. The people on my team are in all of these amazing ways, and um, I'm not able to comment authoritatively. Like, great job, Sanjay. The code that you wrote is really good code, because I have a very limited understanding of what that would be, or I can't, as a peer, praise or criticize on the technical merits of the things that the people that I work with do a lot of the time. Um, and that's been in some ways, a hard thing to come to terms with. Um, and to just accept, in that I need to I simply don't have the authority or the technical knowledge to uh, to to be involved at that level. What I can do is make sure that the environment that we've got as a team, that the culture that we've got as a team, allows for other experts in whatever that specialism might be, engineering or design or whatnot, um, are able to recognize and interrogate and challenge and critique in a healthy, constructive way, so that those people who are doing that technical specialist work do get that recognition and that feedback and that criticism and all of those positive things, even when I'm totally unable to give those things myself, to give that support myself. And that is, that's been a really tricky thing to come to in my career that I think a lot of people struggle with. I I always I frequently am in that position where I'm completely out of my depth. Technically, I'm that one person in the conversation that's really struggling to follow what's being talked about, and yet need to be aware of kind of the ramifications of something. And when I was younger, in the past, I would have given into the temptation of faking it, of blagging it. Oh yeah, we need to deploy the servers to Node scripts or whatnot. And then quickly realize that that's a stupid thing to do. It's the that you can, by acknowledging your lack of sort of technical awareness or the specifics of it, only make you more useful to the team in lots of ways, and that you can ask dumb questions and in a way force people to explain themselves more clearly, because oftentimes that has the magic consequence of clarifying thinking and making ideas better, even if you don't understand them yourself. Yeah, it's a magic process. But yeah, very much not in a position to parental figure tell someone, nice job on that piece of code that you wrote. you wrote.
Well, I mean, you've done a great job of faking it, because I mean, you do have you come across as someone has a very solid high level understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, thanks for saying so. That is, I guess, reflecting on it, that is something that I can see a real difference in my career over the years of is the knowledge that I have gained by accident and deliberately around basic technical practices. Why, why it's important that an engineer know vanilla JavaScript rather than some fancy framework. Why, how deployment pipelines work. Why TDD might be a good practice. Why design systems are functionally important. There's things that I've picked up through necessity and osmosis that have helped me feel a lot more useful in the job over the years. There is definitely advice that I would give to people interested in project management or delivery management. There's absolutely benefit in nerding out with a technical book or finding ways to understand the terminology and the methods and the tools and the reasons why people do things. That's been enormously helpful, and I think I am a lot more technical now than I would have been 5 or 10 years ago. It has in really concrete ways helped me for sure. That said, whenever I'm say asked by my manager to define, what are your development goals this quarter? What do you want to progress in? Inevitably, the thing that I'm always keen to do is to learn more about that. I'm really keen to learn more about mobile architecture right now, and why, what the deployment processes are for iOS versus Android, because that's not something that I've done a huge amount in my job, and I'm suddenly realizing this. It's important and valuable. Stuff like that will always be coming up and constantly be coming up, and learning it at a high level is both interesting. I genuinely find it neat how CD works and why it's important and why it's a good thing, and all the traps and tricks, while also just helping me to be a useful part of conversations and to help support the teams in a useful way. That said, you certainly don't need to be technical, and there's just sort of a level of acceptance that I think most delivery managers have to come to, that they will be in some ways the dumbest person in the room in lots of conversations, and that's totally okay. That's fine to acknowledge, and just something you need to be comfortable with.
Where else can you go from like a PM and DM role? I mean, what's the sort of progression like, and what's in your future?
It's not uncommon to go on to say do consultancy. Or contract work for much more sort of short-term basis, and that sort of goes back to what we were talking about before, working with more almost more project-based or shorter timelines and less defined teams. There's kind of that consultancy side of things of helping organizations become more agile. Agile consultancy and change management is a very lucrative business, and with lots of interest and opportunities, helping organizations big and small either scale agile or embed agility into an organization or move away from different practices. Another would be sort of the program management and directing side of things. So leading, being sort of acting as head of delivery in an organization, overseeing the delivery of teams. Those sort of leadership roles.
Before I let you go, I've got one last question for you, which is, can you please tell me the joke of the show?
I'm currently writing a book about hurricanes and tornadoes. It's only a draft at the moment.
Colin. Wonderful. That's an awesome, terrible joke. Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sanj. Anytime.
And that's all, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. For more info, for questions, comments, or feedback, please head on over to aheadintech.com and don't forget to subscribe.